Okay, this is the second of our Backseat critiques today, and this is the film we saw earlier, so this is going to be a shorter review. This is Alice Through the Looking Glass.
I have less to say about this.
I thought this was better than Tim Burton's one, simply because this one didn't fucking try to adapt the book. This one's just like, put her through a fucking mirror, do ridiculous shit.
This was very obviously a children's movie. It was obvious in everything. And I know that this is a divisive turn of phrase, but Alice is really a Mary Sue. Like, I didn't even realize it as much until we watched this and was like, wow, Mia, what's her face?
Wasikowski.
I'm like, when we saw Crimson Peak, I was looking at her like, I've seen her look perturbed and confused in a dress like that. And you were like, yeah, she was Alice in Tim Burton's Alice. And I'm like, oh, right.
Baby Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, she does look like Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, she looks so much like Tilda Swinton. You could reenact The Shining with the twins, who I think in real life are like 8 and 10, but they dressed and look similar. That's why you get the sort of freakishness, because they're slightly off in that way. You could do that with her, Tilda Swinton, just dress them identically, standing there saying something. It would be awesome.
So get on that, somebody. But yeah, well, it was colorful. It looked good, but what doesn't these days?
I could name something.
Well, I mean, they were
usually directed by Bill Zabab.
I mean, like, with, like, studio money behind it.
He has a studio.
Who directed this?
Somebody, Bobbin. I don't know. I never came across him before.
But here's the thing. I read a pitch for it. I was like, oh, well, Sacha Baron Cohen plays the villain, Time. But he's not really very villainous. He's just an antagonist. But he's kind of an unwilling antagonist, like, in the way that the three bears are antagonists. Because Goldilocks came in their house and stole their shit. Like, he did a good job, don't get me wrong. But everyone in this movie was in this movie to act. Like, you had Anne Hathaway being like, huh? What? And, like, I was getting ready to be annoyed with her as an actor, and I remembered that's exactly how her character, the same character, was in the last movie. I'm like, oh, okay.
Sacha Baron Cohen and Helena Bonham Carter sort of shared villain roles. They were each half a villain.
Yeah. But I think he was less... Alright, well, spoilers aside. So basically, the Mad Hatter is basically dying of depression because
he's famous.
His family was killed, and he didn't get a chance to make amends with his father. They parted on a fight. And so, but he found this wee little hat that he made when he was young, and that kind of triggered a major depressive fit. And so they fetch Alice, who's got her own issues in the real world, who's been a sea captain for the past 3 years. And I hate to be one to be like, there's a historical inaccuracy, actually. Actually, really, in 1875, really that wouldn't be done. Okay, I'll make an exception for Keira Knightley in Pirates of the Caribbean, because 1, she wasn't a captain, and 2, it's already fantasy.
I think she became like a pirate queen or something.
Yeah, but it's already fantasy, and there was justification for pirate queens.
Yeah.
But...
and the film, it starts off, they're just off Malaysia, they're fighting Malay pirates, and after she gets rid of the pirates, then she's like, set course for London, and I was just like...
Well, because you have to chart a course, so she has to have someone run off and, like...
They're gonna have to stop somewhere before London.
Well, they're not going all that fast.
So they should have been all like...
You have to chart the course with one of those little
I know, but
things.
you can't just set course, you gotta set course for somewhere else to get supplies, and then somewhere else, because it's like a...
That's not as drastic.
It's like a 6-month voyage.
It's more dramatic. But anyways, so she's got her own issue, and it's really sad, though, because, Abelard, who's now a butterfly, comes to tell her, oh, you must go back to Wonderland. And I was like, wait a second, that's not... Oh my god, it is Alan Rickman, is it?
Yeah.
And I said to you, sorry, like, it's not Rickman, like... Poor Alan Rickman.
I think it's very sad that Alan Rickman chose to be in this film. He had better things to do in his last days. Like, not be in Alice in Wonderland.
Would you stop that? The poor man's dead.
No, I'm not insulting him. I'm saying that...
Yeah.
I'm just saying this is one of the worst things that ever happens to him.
Okay, fair play. But yeah, so...
Poor Alan Rickman, indeed.
So, Alice is like, oh, he thinks his family's still alive. And they're like, well, all his friends are like, well, that's obviously not true. And then the White Queen is like, well, maybe you can go back in time and save them.
I'm guessing there's a cut scene where his dad yells at the Hatter for having such garish makeup.
Yeah, like, it's really weird. Like, and so... She has to go see Time to borrow something called a chronosphere, lets you go back in time.
Chronosphere, because the guy plays a lot of Command and Conquer.
But anyway, so basically she goes to Time, and Time's like, no. this is a really bad idea. You can't change the past. You can only learn from it. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. But it turns out that the Queen of Hearts is courting him because she wants to get her hands on the chronosphere and go back and, become queen. And he's like, no, I love you, but really this is a really bad plan. So while that's going on, Alice just steals it and goes back in time. And then keeps going back in time to try to fix things.
And then apparently this is causing time to destroy itself. And now the big clock that represents everything in time is falling apart all throughout the film.
And Sacha Baron Cohen's character Time is also clockwork. So he's progressively dying, trying to go after her to get the chronosphere back to keep the universe from stopping.
And this is we're constantly told that this is going to destroy the world. But you never get it's not made into a big deal. You compare it to the nothing from the Neverending Story.
Yeah.
That's constantly there. It's killing people as it goes. Then towards the end of this, they have something, a big event happens.
They have a paradox.
It basically destroys the universe. And in which case, basically, their way of showing that shit got real is to do the thing that already was happening, they said it would do, but it didn't.
Yeah, it's like basically Rust overtakes everyone.
Yeah,
so... That's actually kind of the effects were
good. The same idea. This one has got the two things which are functionally the same. One's utterly crap and one's not crap. You put them together and do it competently, you got the nothing from the Neverending Story. That's the best fantasy film ever made.
Yeah. Johnny Depp is just so over the top wacky. You can't even empathize with his character anymore. Sacha Baron Cohen did a great job. I knew that he would. Before the film, I kind of compared him to John Leguizamo, who is the most annoying, obnoxious. Well, okay, plays the most kind of annoying, obnoxious roles, but then will occasionally take a role where you're like, wow, he can act. I saw Moulin Rouge, I was like, John Leguizamo can act. I didn't know that. And apparently in person he's this really nice guy who prefers to do theater and stuff like that because he gets to actually act. But I'm like, I wonder if Sacha Baron Cohen is actually a nice person who also likes to act.
Yeah, I think an argument could be made for Puerto Rico being the part of the United States' sphere which produces the best actors in that whole, that country and connected area. Mm-hmm. Because you got Leguizamo, John Turturro, you got Raul Julia.
That's true.
A fuckload of other ones. It's just Puerto Rico has a freakish amount of good actors.
What are they doing down there?
I don't know, but it's got to involve pork, because apparently they do good pork in Puerto Rico, according to Bizarre Foods.
That's what I've heard. But Helena Bonham Carter was very herself, playing the exact same role. A lot of people were just playing the exact same role they played in the previous movie. Fair play. Tweedledee and Tweedledum are still very Uncanny Valley, but in a good way. There were a few funny lines. But
everything's CGI around us.
It's true. Everything is. I guess Andy Serkis must be really tired because he's the only mocap artist in the world. They have to have Andy Serkis locked in a room somewhere, just covered with those little motion tracker balls, and they'll just never let him out. They just keep handing him scripts.
I'm never doing it. No.
Do it, Andy. I don't want to see my family. But. And the bad thing is I was trying to think of things to say in the vlog during the actual film.
I almost cried whenever they came across the corpse of the Knave of Hearts because Crispin Glover is dead.
When did that happen?
Well, they found it, Sacha Baron Cohen was stuck beside this dead body of a guy with a sword through his chest. That was the Knave of Hearts from the first one.
Oh.
And that was played by Crispin Glover. George McFly from the first Back to the Future, who directed What Is It?
Yeah, but isn't he really crazy? Wasn't he threatening Kyle's life at some point?
No,
Twitter?
there was no, he wasn't threatening Kyle's life. There was a possibility of a lawsuit because What Is It was never released for public consumption.
And Kyle did a review of it.
Yeah, Crispin Glover, basically
Isn't he mad in real life?
He's eccentric and he's very into sort of outsider art, but he's before the allegations happened, I would usually say that Crispin Glover is Johnny Depp is Crispin Glover, but with leading man good looks. They remind me, it's very similar. It's just Crispin Glover completely embraces doing weird shit, while Johnny Depp gets away with just being quirky because he's so damn handsome. So
I'm trying to think about what else. I mean, it was very much a children's movie because you got the happy ending for everybody, and
There was the clever thing where they got the little clockwork robots called seconds who joined up into larger ones, like combined Transformer style into minutes, which then combined into a giant one called an hour, which was vaguely clever.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. But you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of that part in the animated Metropolis, Osamu Tezuka's Metropolis.
Oh, the one I refuse to watch because it's Fritz Lang or get the fuck out.
Up. It's probably a different title in Japanese anyway.
It was a remake.
Huh?
It's a remake of the Fritz Lang movie.
He was inspired by, is what he said.
Okay.
Thank you very much, the end. I mean, well, he said it in an interview. This was years ago in the magazine, but...
I thought it was a remake, sorry.
It's not. It has nothing to do with it. It's basically the one of the characters was kind of the inspiration for Astro Boy.
Oh.
You should really watch the anime. It's really good.
She's going to beat me when the camera's off.
I'm not. But, like, there's a part where there's a fire in one of, like, the sub-levels of the city. You know, these little teeny, like, you know, smoke bots come together, and they, like, make big firefighting robots. And it reminded me almost, like, shot for shot for...
They could well have seen it.
Well, yeah, looks very much inspired by that. So, I'm not saying they copied, but it just reminded me of that.
It's sort of like how shots of Perfect Blue turn up in a bunch of different films.
Yeah. There was one cool thing, and the thing is that, like, I did like Time as a character because he just wanted to do his job. I mean, there's a part where he goes into this place where he's like, oh, living people in Wonderland, and he looks up and he's like, who's gonna stop ticking? Oh, right, this person. And he's like, well, your time is up, and he closes the watch and that person dies. But then he goes into, like a moonlight part of it where all these watches are just hanging motionless in, like, careful rows, and he's like, he hangs up and he's like, well, you did a good job, and I hope you made good use of your time. Good night now. And I was like, aw. He's like, not a bad guy. He's just doing his job.
And the little subtle things where he saw the back of his neck was covered in cogs and stuff.
And
I wish they'd done more with that, because his eyes were like crazy blue, but not quite as crazy blue as the elves in Warcraft. I kind of wish that he'd had like little cogs in his eyes.
I have a theory that they might have been going for something like that, but one, it was too creepy, too uncanny valley, or they just couldn't get it to look right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. But I'd give it a miss, quite honestly. I mean, if you really liked the first one, you might still like this one, but wait for it to come out on DVD.
I fucking hate it.
No, wait for it to come on Netflix, really. I mean...
I fucking hated the first one. I thought this was marginally better.
the first one, at least they were trying something new. Like, I like those adaptations of Shakespeare where it's like, you know, the modern day kind of stuff. I like twists on things. I like, you know, seeing things done a different way to see what happens. I mean, sometimes you get really weird stuff like Julie Taymor's Titus.
That was fucking awesome.
I saw Titus at a party and I was so fucked up. At the time we were just kind of sitting there like watching like, where did they get guns in Shakespeare?
I should show you Julie Taymor's version of The Tempest.
Why has she got a fucking deer head?
Why not?
We need to go to Denny's.
Because she directed the Lion King stage show.
No, we watched it. That was a night we ended up at like 4 a.m. at Denny's being like, what the fuck do I don't know? I mean, what the fuck do I don't know? I mean,
but do you know who's the lead in her version of The Tempest? Helen Mirren.
That's kind of cool.
As Prospera.
But yeah, like, I like adaptations that mix it up some, so I was like, alright.
Well, the difference there, because one of the reasons I like the wildly different Shakespeare adaptations is because the script is pretty much the same, you can concentrate on everything else in the film. So on one level, it's like shutting off your brain that pays attention to the words and you pay attention to the other stuff, and it allows you to experience the other choices much clearer. Which, as a serious film, that is fascinating. But with Alice in Wonderland, it's different because we've never actually had a very, 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 very accurate, definitive Alice in Wonderland. The closest is the Disney version from the 50s or whatever. But we've still never had that. So having a different version, when all of them have been different...
I remember a live-action version, and a live-action version of Through the Looking Glass, that I had like an all-star cast of like famous people
mid-90s?
That were... No, it was when I was little. Oh. It was either late 70s or early 80s. But it was fucking nightmare fuel. Like, I remember being fucking terrified. If you know, write the show. But it was one of those ones that I think it was a TV miniseries. It was an ensemble cast. It was a lot of, like, famous character actors that, like, you know, my parents would be like, oh, it's so-and-so from such-and-such show. But that your parents might not have known because they were all from American television. Like, it was that, and it was Through the Looking Glass. I remember it being fucking terrifying because we had them on VHS. We taped them off TV.
But maybe that is a definitive one that I didn't know about. But since it's not famous enough, we do not have a definitive version that is accurate. That is very, very, very accurate. The Disney one's apparently semi-accurate, not like maybe 70% of the way there.
Well, I gotta confess, I've actually never read the original text. I've only read adapted versions.
It's all about mathematics.
It is, well, because that's the thing is, in case you didn't know, if you were young and you don't know this, that Lewis Carroll was terrified by the idea of irrational numbers and the higher parts of calculus that go into like that really weird theoretical helix uncoiling and n dimensions kind of stuff. And he thought that abstract mathematics would kind of like rock the basis of science and rock the basis of reality. He said, well, if you have imaginary numbers, then what's real? And this whole thing was kind of a satire of that.
What the world would be like if everything else was done in the same
it was so weird and so
stuff.
abstract. And of like it did reference the time like being mad as a hatter was because they used mercury. So they all ended up with mercury dementia back in the day. So that's like something that's one of those things that you'll hear on QI or like,
Why
Jeopardy.
is a raven like a writing desk?
There's actually no answer for that. A lot of people have come up with their own ideas.
I think that there is the one that's the clever. There's the one that is clever enough that should be definitive.
What is it?
Because Poe wrote on both.
Lol. But the thing is that like apparently like he was asked about that later on in his career and he's like, it's just a nonsense riddle. There's no answer.
Someone comes up with an answer. It's like Fermat's last theorem. It was like, oh, is it answerable? Is it answerable? It was so unanswerable that Captain Picard was trying to solve it in the 24th century, and then the guy like 2 years later is like, I solved it.
Pretty much.
Someone will do. You come up with anything, even if it is designed to be bullshit. Someone will fix it.
There was one book. There's a fiction book that just came out, and I saw it at the shop, and I didn't want to buy it when it's in trade paper. It's out in Little Mass Market now. I think I might get it, and it's basically about the governess of the actual Alice Little, to whom the story was dedicated to. Mm-hmm. That your man Lewis Carroll was obsessed with her, but her governess was obsessed with him and thought that he was writing it to court her, and apparently gets all like weird, like single white female-ish kind of.
Oh, interesting.
I don't want to read that.
There's a film where I forget the name. Ian Holm plays Lewis Carroll, and it's about elderly Alice Little, who was the inspiration for Alice from Alice in Wonderland, going through America, sort of going on these tours, to celebrate the anniversary. And Maggie Smith, I think, plays Alice. He's got all these flashbacks to her as a child with Lewis Carroll and about the writing of the book, which was an interesting film.
But yeah, so we've only got a wee bit of battery power left. So, like I said, wait for it to come on Netflix. If you really, really enjoyed the first movie, by all means, go to it. But it doesn't get my thumbs up. We
saw a trailer, the trailer for Independence Day 2, and it just struck me how much better our lives, how the totality of our lives would be if instead of Independence Day 20 years later, it was Mars Attacks 20 years later, because the Martians have worked out earplugs, and now we are fucked.
We also got a trailer for the live-action Beauty and the Beast, which I'm going to go see. Because that's one of my favorite Disney films.
Will that be competent Bill Condon or terrible Bill Condon?
We'll have to find out.
If you want to experience competent Bill Condon, Gods and Monsters. You want to see incompetent? I think it's Candyman 2. If you want to experience both at once, Breaking Dawn Part 2. The competent part is the bit where everyone dies. Incompetent, everything else.
Well, so yeah. So that's what we have to say about that. Any final thoughts?
I'm pretty sure I have other thoughts, but I can't remember right now because it's been about 6 hours since we saw it.
I want to teach my cat to do Cheshire Cat tricks.